and welcome back to my channel, or if you're new, my name is Tanisha and I love taking you along on my reading journey. And in today's video, I'm going to take you along on a couple of my bookish days. So this is not a week vlog where I talk about everything that I do, but I only talk about the bookish things that I did. So let's go back to a couple of days ago when I had a book club meeting. I didn't film at the actual book club meeting, but I went to two bookstores, one before the meeting by myself and one after the meeting with two of the girls because we were walking through Rotterdam and all of a sudden we came across a queer bookstore that was still open. So obviously we went inside and looked at some books. I have filmed some books in both of the bookstores that I was eyeing, but I didn't end up buying any of the books because I might be moving soon. So I want to have as less books in my house as possible. So obviously everything that I buy right now would have to be moved by me as well. So I don't want to add to that. I already have a lot of books to move. So yeah, so I'm going to show you some clips now that I filmed in both of the bookstores and also all the books that I was eyeing. And after that we are going to redo a book journal page. And I'm going to talk about my fall TBR and I will tell you about how I did on my summer TBR. So a lot of bookish things to talk about in this video. So grab a drink, get cozy and watch me do everything bookish. This is the page that I want to change. It is a bit too simple for me, especially after I did pages like this where it is way more colorful. I think I'm just going to design it on Canva. So I'm just going to do that right now and then I will get back to you when I finish it to show you my newly improved ranking page. I finished my new ranking page. It is still very simple, but I like it way better than the original page. I might still add some stickers to it, but for now this is what I have come up with. I also changed out one of my fall TBR books, so I will talk to you about that later because I have to go to school now. But I have come up with 12 books that I want to read in fall, so that's what you can expect later on in the video. And I also want to talk about my summer TBR and how far I got with that because I never updated you after I filmed my summer TBR video. So yeah, I will talk to you maybe later today or tomorrow depending on how tired I am after my school day. It is many days later and it's finally time to talk to you about my fall TBR. I already showed you the page. In my last clip, I updated the last book because I wanted to switch out a book for that. So let's go over my fall TBR. I made this TBR at the end of September. So one of the books that is on my fall TBR, I actually already read in September, which was Not Quite Dead Yet by Holly Jackson. You can hear about my thoughts in my September wrap up, but Not Quite Dead Yet is about Jet, who is a 27-year-old girl who gets attacked on Halloween night, and this attack leaves her with a brain injury that basically kills her in 7 days, and she uses her last 7 days to solve her own murder. This is Holly Jackson's newest release and also her first adult thriller. All her other books are YA, and so far I recommend all her books, so that's why this book was on my fall TBR, but I have actually already read that one. A book that was on my summer TBR but actually has been transferred over to my fall TBR was Babel by R.F. Kuang, which is a dark academia about Oxford University, and it is a thought-provoking book about languages and power, and that's actually all I know about this book. I have had it for quite some time now. I think I bought it in June and it is October now and I still have not read it. I really want to read it this season. I really liked R.F. Kuang's Yellow Face and I know this book is very different, but I'm actually very excited to get into this story. I also want to continue the Throne of Glass series in this season, so I have book 3 and the prequel on my fall TBR. I have already read Throne of Glass and Crown of Midnight, and next up is Hair of Fire, and after Hair of Fire I'm going to read Assassin's Blade, which is the prequel. I know there is a lot of talks about when you should read what. I decided to not start with Assassin's Blade just because I wasn't sure if I wanted to, and I didn't want to spoil it for myself because obviously I can't go back and unread Assassin's Blade. So I thought, as long as I'm not sure when to read Assassin's Blade, I'm just not going to read it. So I started with Throne of Glass, then I read Crown of Midnight. I was thinking about reading Assassin's Blade next, but I have heard that the ending of Hair of Fire will slow down a bit more than the ending of Crown of Midnight, because Crown of Midnight actually ended on a very high. So I just want to know what happens next, and it is always easier to stop after a slower ending. And from what I have heard, Hair of Fire ends a little bit slower, which makes it easier for me to stop the current timeline and go back in time to read Assassin's Blade, if that makes sense. So that's next up. I also want to read the Caraval series by Stephanie Garber. So I have Caraval on my fall TBR, which is about a magical carnival where not everything is what it seems. And that's honestly all I know. I'm going into this series almost completely blind, but I really want to try to read the books back to back. So I have all 3 of the books on my fall TBR. I know there is a novella somewhere between. I didn't put that on my TBR, but I am obviously going to read it. So I have Caraval on my fall TBR, Legendary, and Finale. So let's get back to the thriller side of my TBR again. I have The Wrong Daughter by Dandy Smith on my fall TBR as well. This book is actually on my 2025 TBR. Caraval is as well, and the next 3 books that I'm going to talk about are on my 2025 TBR as well. So The Wrong Daughter has been on my TBR all year now, and I honestly don't even know what the book is about because I like to go into books as blindly as possible. So yeah, I have decided to not read the blurb, but I am very excited to get into it because a friend of mine has read it recently and she enjoyed it. It wasn't a groundbreaking 5-star read for her, but I'm pretty sure she liked her reading experience, so that's why I put it on my fall TBR. I also have the Inheritance Games on my TBR by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. I have all 3 of the books on there. So that is the original trilogy and not the Hawthorne's Brothers spin-off thingy. Not sure if I want to read that, but I at least want to read the first 3 books. I have heard that this series gives Knives Out vibes, so that sounds so fun. But yeah, it is about a girl who inherits some money from someone she doesn't know, but in order to get this money she has to solve puzzles and stuff like that, because that is what this family likes. And I'm honestly just so excited to get into this series finally, because I've been wanting to read it since I read the Natural series a couple of years ago, but I obviously took some time to read other series and other authors, but I really want to get back to Jennifer Lynn Barnes and read her Inheritance Games series. Now it is time to talk about the last book on my fall TBR. Originally, this book was Under the Dome by Stephen King. You have seen me read that in my 24 hours of reading challenge, but I soft DNF'd the book because it was just too dark at the time, and I've been trying to get back into the story. I also put it on my summer TBR. I transferred it from my summer TBR to my fall TBR, but then I decided to stop trying to read this book and just full on DNF the book. It is just so long, and even though it is interesting to read about people who are trapped in a dome, I didn't care too much to read 400 pages more because I have already read 426 pages or so, and I still have the same amount of pages left. So as far as right now, I don't think I'm going to continue the book. So I took it off my fall TBR and I replaced it with a silly little fall romance, which is the Pumpkin Spice Cafe by Laurie Gilmore. I have read and heard so many good things about this series. Obviously, it is not very deep romances, but I have heard that it is just a very fun seasonal read. And I think it is a very fun mix with all the other books because I think it can be a very good palette cleanser between all the other books. So yeah, those are the 12 books that I have on my fall TBR, but I have mentioned my summer TBR a couple of times before. So let's update you on how I did on that. This was the design that I had made back when I made my summer TBR. I still like the purple oceany theme that I chose. If you are interested in all the books in depth, I have a summer TBR video on my channel, so you can watch that for all the synopsis. So you can watch that to hear all about what the books are about, because right now I'm only going to update you on what books I read, what I rated them, and if I want to read all the other books that I haven't read yet later on in the year, or why I haven't picked it up. So let's start with the first book on my summer TBR, which was Babel by Arv Kwan. I obviously already talked about this in this video because it is on my fall TBR. I just didn't get around to reading this one in the summer, so I transferred it over to my fall TBR because I really want to read it still. The next two books on my summer TBR were Throne of Glass and Crown of Midnight, which I both read and really enjoyed. I rated Throne of Glass 4 stars and Crown of Midnight 3.5 stars. Throne of Glass was a very strong start to the series. I got to meet all the characters, I was sucked in. It had some elements of fantasy series that I really like. It is about Selena, who is an assassin, and she has to basically win her freedom. And Crown of Midnight obviously is a sequel to that, so it just follows up where Throne of Glass stopped. And I didn't like Crown of Midnight as much. I still enjoyed my read, but it didn't grip my attention as much as Throne of Glass did. So that's why it is half a point lower than Throne of Glass, but obviously I still like them both enough to continue the series in the fall. So I read those two books. Another book that was on my summer TBR that I read was Atmosphere by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I have a reading vlog about this book where I also tried to annotate it as much as possible, which I really liked. This book was so beautiful, it made me feel all the emotions and more, and I just really like Taylor Jenkins Reid's writing. I have read Malibu Rising and The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by her so far, and all three of the books, so Malibu Rising, Seven Husbands and Atmosphere, were all three amazing reads, and I just think that Taylor Jenkins Reid is an amazing author. She has the most beautiful quotes, the most realistic characters that aren't flawed but still very likable. So yeah, I really enjoyed Atmosphere and I gave it 4.5 stars. Another book I gave 4.5 stars was Kill for Me, Kill for You by Steve Kavanaugh. I read this right after Atmosphere. The vibes with this this book was obviously very different because this was a thriller and the atmosphere was a historical fiction romance book. Kill for Me, Kill for You was a thriller about two women who meet and decide to kill for each other. And this book had a lot of twists and turns that I didn't expect at all. I really enjoyed the writing style. I really enjoyed going back and forth between all the characters, even when it wasn't as clear why you were reading about all these characters, because at the beginning you cannot really understand why they are connected. But I really enjoyed this story. A book I didn't read was Love Unwritten by Lauren Asher, just because I didn't get around it. I have tried to read as many books as possible during the summer that I really wanted to read. I tried to mood read as much as possible, knowing that when school starts, my reading would slow down. And Lauren Asher's Love Unwritten was just not on top of my priority, I think. So that's why I didn't read it, as well as Where She Went by Gail Forman. I really wanted to pick it up in the summer and I just didn't get around to it. But I will probably read it later on in the year or maybe next year. But right now it is not on top of my priority. A romance that I did read, however, was Play Along by Liz Tomford, which I also have a reading vlog about. I started this book in March and soft DNF'd it, and I felt like summer was the right time to get back into the story, so that's why I put it on my summer TBR, and I'm so glad I did because I really enjoyed this story. I didn't restart the story, so I just picked back up where I left in March. I did have to get back into the story a little bit, but once I was fully in again, I was so invested. The characters are not my favorite from the entire series, but the plot was my favorite. I have just noticed that fake marriage is one of my favorite tropes, so even though the characters were not as fun as the other characters, I still gave the book 4.75 stars. Pretty high. I also read Hotel Nantucket by Ellen Hilderbrand, which was my very first Ellen Hilderbrand book ever. I had heard so many good things about Ellen Hilderbrand and her books, and I understand why people like her so much because she just writes very fun stories. Hotel Nantucket was also a very fun story about a hotel who tries to get a 5-star review from this one blogger that never gives 5-star reviews, and you get to meet so many characters. It feels like a small town. You are on an island after all, so you really get to feel the small town vibes. You get to know a lot of characters that will come back in other books, and it was just a very fun read. I read it during a 12-hour of reading video, so I read it in one sitting and I had so much fun reading it so fast, and I gave the book 4.5 stars. The Mysterious Case of the Alberton Angels by Janice Hallett was also on my summer TBR, which I read during a 12 hours of reading video, I think. No, 24 hours of reading challenge. Anyway, I read it in one of my reading vlogs, and I just love Janice Hallett's writing. She writes mixed media thrillers, so you read emails, text messages, transcripts, phone calls, stuff like that to tell the story, and it just gives you a very fun way to also try to investigate yourself. You are basically reading the same clues as the person who is investigating the cases. I have read a couple books by her right now, and all the books were over 4 stars. This one was also a 4-star read. I already talked about this book, but Under the Dome was also on my summer TBR. I tried reading it in August, I think, and I got halfway there and then soft DNF'd it and then fully DNF'd. It is just not for me, so that's why I didn't finish it. And the last book on my summer TBR was The Innocent Wife by Amy Lloyd, and I honestly just didn't get around to reading this book. I still want to read it before the end of the year because the story sounds so incredibly interesting. It is about a woman who is married to a man on death row. She always believed in his innocence, but she has started to doubt it. That sounds super fun. So yeah. That is how I did on my summer TBR. Those are all the bookish things I wanted to talk to you about in this video. But that being said, thank you so much for watching. Comment down below what is on your fall TBR, and I will see you in my next video whenever I post it, because your girl is very busy.